Hi, it's Dr. Les. Welcome to another episode of I Bought a Farm. So now what? Today is June 9th, and I'm out here getting ready to check the heifers. I haven't been down here in a couple of days. Ken and Jeff have been looking at them and haven't had any issues whatsoever so far. We are getting close to needing to be able to rotate these heifers up to either paddock 2 or paddock 3. My goal today is simply to look at the heifers to make sure that they're still doing well, to get an idea of the grass and how much grass we have left, if I need to move them today, or perhaps wait until the end of the week. And then finally, I want to get a really good idea of our fly situation. It's getting into fly season, and we have decided that instead of putting fly tags in, we're going to try to spray. And so we're going to look at the heifers. I'm going to buy a commercial fly spray, and then the landowner, since he's feeding them every day, he'll when he sees they're starting to get some fly infestation, he'll spray the cattle accordingly. So currently that's what the plan is. It's very windy today. I've got some devices, some foam over my microphone, so hopefully the wind won't be too bad, and we'll be able to get a lot of fun. This is back out in the receiving lot. If you remember, the landowner skinned that down to about 3 inches when we moved the cattle out of here about a month ago. Getting pretty good regrowth on this. Another 2 weeks and we'll be able to turn back into here and take advantage of this fresh regrowth. We just gotta hope that we continue to get reasonable rain, get a half inch to 3/4 of an inch every week to 10 days, because this hill farm with all these rocks doesn't take hot dry very well, so we need to kind of keep a little bit of moisture on it every week if we want to maximize our growth of our forage. Back out to paddock 1. This is the north paddock. We turned this is where the heifers were at first, and we moved them from paddock 1 over to paddock 4. We cut this down. It was not cut. This part was skinned where these weeds are, and because my hope was to knock these weeds back, and the weeds that were here then we knocked back, but this ragweed has kind of come up, and we'll have to take it down here before too long too. And then of course we still have a little bit of buttercup. Seems like you can't hardly get around a grazed area in Kentucky without some buttercup. But we're getting some pretty good regrowth. Down here he cut it a little bit shorter than over in paddock 4. But still, in another couple of weeks we're going to have some really good grazing out of this, I think. You can see there's still plenty of grass available. I had a couple of shots as I drove out here to the heifers. Forage availability is not a problem right now. This is the east end of that north paddock, paddock 1. It was cut a little bit higher than down there near the barn, and you can see that it's going to be capable of good grazing a little bit quicker. It's going to recover a little bit faster than where it was mowed a little shorter. This is actually looking pretty good, thinking that it's going to be about 2 more weeks before we turn heifers out here. And again, as long as we get a little bit of rain, and we're supposed to get a little bit of rain today, we keep getting a little bit of rain about once a week, twice a week. We're just getting 1/4 to a half an inch each rain. This grass is going to continue to grow, and we're going to get a lot of excellent grazing. This is perfect. This is paddock 2, up on the top of the hill, where the tobacco patch. We just get up over that rise. I'll get over there in a second. That's where the tobacco patch was. The landowner bush hogged the tops off of this about 2 weeks ago, and it is absolutely prime for fantastic grazing. So I'm confident we'll pull those heifers up here And they'll graze paddock 2 in the next go round instead of paddock 3. Paddock 3 has not yet been mowed, so when we turn them out here, then we'll go down and mow the tops off of paddock 3, and then we'll be ready to go from 2 to 3 and then back to 1. But that looks fantastic. I'm going to drive up over to the other side of the rise and get a shot over there as well. A really good grass and a fantastic stage for really good grazing. If we continue this venture next year, if the landowner continues it, that is, we're going to have to do something with this. This is where the tobacco was planted, and you can tell that it's just not very good. There's a lot of weeds here. There's a lot of weeds. There's a lot of weeds here. There's a little bit of grass, but this is not going to be as good a grazing as what we saw on the hillside over there, or is what's just right down over that ridge there. An option we may consider for next year is to turn this sod over and we'll plant crabgrass in it, or a warm season annual like sorghum sudan, so that we have one field perfectly set up for July grazing. That might be a perfect option here. Maybe we'll put a poly wire there and run them on that end, and then bring them down in here to where the crabgrass will be, or sorghum sudan, whatever we decide to put in here, and then finish up on the edges, and then move back into one of the other paddocks later. But this right here is just not great grass. Tons of weeds, a lot of buttercup, a lot of ragweed. Just this area needs a lot of work. Now we're back over on the other side of the patch, and you can see again really good grass. I mean, that grass is thick and it is perfect for grazing. So I'm going to get those heifers up here Thursday, Friday at the latest. Take advantage of this outstanding grass. Our one issue up here, of course, is water. Our access to water is down here by the gate, and it'll run down to the pond. If we can't get the cattle to drink out of the pond, then I'm going to have to run a lane all the way down to the water tank, and that'll make it a little over 1,000 feet from that corner all the way down to the water tank, which is a little bit further than we want cattle to walk. But anyway, this is phenomenal grass, handled perfectly. So on both sides of this tobacco patch, we are in great shape. This is going to be the most difficult part of grazing paddock 2. Paddock 2 is back here. Okay, the tobacco patch is just on the rise. This is that really good grass that we looked at on the downslope coming into the tree line and the fence. Okay, and here's our gap. And this gap takes us down to the water, which, right here is the pond and the water gap access that we want the cattle to have to the pond. Now, again, remember, we've been having trouble getting the cattle to drink out of the pond, but we haven't forced them to. And so I'm considering, when we move them into paddock 2, forcing them to graze this area here and their only access to water. Okay, I don't know if that'll work or not. If it works, we said. If it's not, then I'm going to have to open up another gap here for the cattle to get back down to I'm going to have to open up this gap and run a lane so the cattle can get down to the water. Okay? But what we'll do is we'll move the heifers into this area first. You can see there's really good grazing here. Okay? And they'll have access to the water gap right there. And they'll find that hole and they'll get up there. So this is what we have to do from a strategy standpoint, is I got to get them into this lot. So we'll pull our feed troughs. So we'll pull our feed trough down here into this area, We'll feed the heifers there. We'll close that gate, and then they'll have access to this really thick grass, and then they can go up there and go through the gap and have access to the rest of the grass. I'm walking down to the pond here just to remind everybody about the water gap. We've mowed a little area down to the water gap, and so what we'll do is we'll go over there and we'll pull those posts. We'll bring them over here and we'll put them here and run that aluminum wire out to and into that pond. If I don't end up doing that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing this gate around, create a lane, and then put some poly wire over on that side, and we'll give them that lane and go back to the city water tank. But I'm going to try to get them to drink out of this pond, although, just to be honest about it, the quality of that pond is not looking too super, and I might just go ahead and run down, create a lane, and run them down to that water anyway. This is what the upper end of the hill looks like, paddock 3. You can see there's a little bit of buttercup in there, and the cool season grasses have matured. We had good orchard grass, fescue, and bluegrass in there, a little bit of vetch. And what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll clip the tops off of it and get the cattle over here to graze. Again, remember the reason that we're clipping is that we want to get those seed heads down. We want to make sure that we don't have those irritants for the eyes to help spread pink eye. But then also, when we get a little bit of cut off of it, that stimulates the grass to grow a little bit more. And so we're going to get a little faster regrowth. So we're going to come in and clip right ahead of it. Maybe get down and get it in that 8 to 10 inch range to help stimulate more grass growth, and again to get rid of those seed heads so that we don't have as much problem with pink eye. This grass was cut about 2 or 3 days before we turned them in here, so it's been about 10 days ago. You can see we're getting some regrowth already in this, and we'll run up there to paddock 3 and I'll show you what it looked like before we cut it. But there's plenty of grass in here for the heifers. I think I'm going to end up moving them at the end of the week. Of course, you can see they've worn out the common pathway here to the water. At the end of this lane there on the other side of the trees is where the water tank is. And so they've had access to this little lane and probably used it several times a day for the last week and have pretty much worn it down. Here's the girls. Okay. Looks like they're getting along really well. Big Red there has always been a little bit skittish compared to the other heifers anyway. But she's still not wild in any way, shape, or form. Again, our goal is just to look at general well-being. I'm mainly focused on the eyes for any early signs of pink eye. Pink eye is caused by irritation of the eye. Often it's due to flies, but you can get it through seed heads and so forth too. And then the flies spread the bacteria from one animal to the other. Early signs of pink eye include watering of the eye, and then when that watering gets fairly excessive, then you'll see a little white pupil or a little white spot in the middle of their eye. And if we can get the heifers in and get them treated before that white spot gets very big, then we'll have a very good chance of 100% recovery. Again, the wind is very bad today. I'm not sure how this is coming out on the audio. If it doesn't work, then what I'll do is just voice over later. Focused in here, we're starting to get a few face flies. Still not super bad. If you look at all the heifers, not every heifer is affected. Some of them are fairly fly free. There's Big Red right there. Okay. But it's going to become an issue, and I'm going to go ahead and get our fly spray purchased and get out here. I bought the spray unit. We're going to use both a garden sprayer, and then I have something that'll spray a little bit heavier, a little bit further, just in case the heifers won't let us. Just in case the heifers won't let us get close to them or close enough to them. Still looking to shed some hair. It'll help these girls as we get into the hotter parts of the summer if they'll take their coat off. But you know, I guess I need to get some soybeans or something and drop it in here to help them shed that hair, and because a little bit of fat, a little bit of oil really impacts the hair coat. I don't see any eye issues here. You can see every heifer. I mean, it's important to count them to make sure that all the heifers are in. And I've already done that. All 23 are here. I'm going to make sure I look at every single eye to see if I see any early signs whatsoever of pink eye. And I'm not picking up anything yet. See Big Red, she's just a little bit goofy. I mean, comparatively speaking, the rest of these heifers are basically eat out of my hand, I think. And she just always got that look about her. See how her head's up just a little bit. She's just a little nervous. But you know, again, that's comparatively speaking. You can notice they spend a lot of time here around this big shade tree. They've got that matted down pretty hard. We'll need to move pastures probably by Friday, if nothing else, just to save wearing this out and save that tree. Because if you cattle up in on a tree like that for long periods of time, it damages the tree. And we certainly don't want to do that. It's a big, beautiful tree. Looking at G101, the Baldy. She's the one I was most concerned about because of the pink skin, and she looks like she's doing really well. No signs whatsoever of pink. Here are the heifers at the other farm. Peaceful. No signs of pink eye, no signs of stress. You can see that heifer there at the water. She's got a few face flies, but nothing bad. Cattle are doing great. Calm down. Plenty of grass. They mowed this a little bit more than they have the other pastures, so they're getting a little bit. You know, they skinned this pretty good when they mowed it. It's sitting in front of the owner's house, so he wants to kind of keep it looking nice too. But they've got a lot more fresh regrowth to graze here than the other heifers do. Maybe not the volume that the other heifers have, but a lot fresher regrowth. Well, I think that's it for today. The heifers look great. No problems yet. No issues with pink eye. No real issues with flies yet, but we're getting on that edge. I'm going to run to the local farm store. I'm going to get some fly spray, and I've already bought a sprayer, and we're going to hook the sprayer up. We got one that'll squirt a little bit further that hooks into the battery of a mule, and then I've got just a standard garden sprayer. I think the heifers are gentle enough. We can just spray them with the garden sprayer. But regardless, we'll get that spray, and we'll see if they just routinely, and not daily, but according to label, spraying of the heifers with the spray will work to control our flies, because we would prefer that to putting more tags in their ears and handling the cattle when we really don't need to. The landowner his choice is to be out here every day with the heifers. And I really like that. And it's made a huge difference in the behavior of these heifers. He feeds them every day. He goes through them every day. Every 2 or 3 days, I come out here and I go through them, and they are used to us. They're used to people being around. And when we're here, we're not pressuring them, and we're not making them lose weight. We're not stressing them in any way. And so I kind of like that situation, and we're going to continue that as best we can. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on another episode of I Bought a Farm. Now what?